Hello guys, NautoAis here. And finally, I'm going to give my thoughts about wrestling. So yes, in the past, I did talk about a bit about wrestling, such as Adam Copeland, aka Edge in WWE, going to AEW, to some extent, CM Punk's, and the backstage footage from All In London 2024. I think that's a nothing burger. The bottom line is, CM Punk just not happy with AEW. It is what it is. It's a business. And of course, my impression and thoughts of my first time going to a live event for AEW and WWE. I already talked about it. So now, the big one I've been wanting to talk about, but I've been holding it up because I want to get more information. The story behind this two, in my personal opinion, my humble opinion, big promotion to some extent. One is a champion promotion. The other one's a challenger promotion. It is what it is. But to some extent, let's just say this challenger promotion is making the champion promotion react to a lot of things since 2019. Believe it or not. But you decide. And yes, I am talking about, and you already kind of heard the hint, AEW and WWE. So first of all, I want to start with, I do watch both of them. Don't really care. I do prefer watching AEW more than WWE because of, the more I watch AEW, I kind of understand like what wrestling's all about. Because I'm just a casual. In the past, I only just think WWE and nothing more. I love this wrestler who, I don't know their backstory, how they're good in the indies. Because I don't even know about indie wrestling. I didn't know about Ring of Honor and GCW, Rev Pro, reality TV. I mean, there's a lot of those indie wrestling. I don't even know about it. All I know was WWE. And even to some extent that I remember a long time ago, I was still in the WWE phase that I only just watched WWE. There was one time I was watching UHF, yeah, I'm that old, and there was an indie wrestling, and I saw Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle, was in an indie. I'm like, how come he's there? Like, and at the time, I was so confused, but now, oh, that makes sense now. So, from a casual trying to learn about the history and the industry of wrestling, that there's more than this, yeah, kind of like me trying to understand about Super Sentai, video game. If you want to learn about it, you learn about it, you Google, you read about it. It is what it is there. I mean, heck, I've been watching some documentary about it, and I learned more than, oh, well, I didn't know. But that's beside the point. Right, for me, like I said, I just prefer watching more about AEW to WWE. But am I going to be a defender, a loyalist to AEW? No, not really. Am I going to be a defender for WWE? Not really, to some extent. And I'll explain that I prefer more, like I said, AEW versus WWE, especially in the business side, especially following WWE with TKO, you know, all that story. For people who don't know, the gist of it is they're all about money. It's not a bad thing. It's not wrong. It's not a crime. It's not illegal. But can I make you look like an ass? Like to some extent, that some of the wrestling fans, the IWC, even felt like, wow, that it's making McMahon look like the good guy over TKO. When it comes to business, but when it comes to the backstage politics, well, that's a different story there. That's one. So what is it, this topic, finding I want to talk about it? And that is the difference of AEW and WWE. So first of all, is AEW a competitive to WWE? To some extent. Not 100%. They're not an equal term. They're never going to be, no matter what. First of all, AEW is a very, very young company. They barely started in 2019. But you got to give props that even starting their franchise, already some interesting part, they already got some wrestler that people are well known, and I hate to go here that AEW from the get-go were more variety when it comes to wrestling versus WWE. I know it might sound a bit quote-unquote racist because to some extent WWE is just American wrestling. I mean, there's just a lot of American wrestler. They barely have any Japanese wrestler, luchadors, Joshi, if you know it, versus in AEW from the get-go, their starter lineup, they already got luchadors, they got Japanese wrestler to some extent. I think the one I know is just Takeshita. They even have Joshi wrestlers. And then you got wrestler from New Japan Pro going to AEW, and I'll explain that later. Even so, I mean, to some extent, it's that because WWE, when it was great, I mean, it was created after the territory died in the 80s, if I remember. Again, like, I sort of know the WWE history, but not that much. I mean, I did try watching some documentary, even the one from Netflix, McMahon, but still I'm like, So, I mean, from territory, then WWF versus AEW from the get-go. But like I said, the reason to some extent is that the wrestlers who are in it and the people behind it have knowledge from other promotion, whether it's from Mexico or Japan. Because when I first saw AEW, I had a feeling, and to some extent I was right, that AEW is an American New Japan Pro Wrestling. So of course, for a while, if you didn't know, New Japan Pro Wrestling have New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, which is their US division. And in the long run, they stopped doing it because, well, you got AEW because the first thing that Tony Khan did, and you gotta give props, is that guy, whether you like it or not, Tony Khan is a wrestling buff. He is very passionate when it comes to wrestling, and when it comes to wrestling, he knows everything. You might say, oh, am I just making it up? I'm just exaggerating. No, if you watch those Media Scrum and some videos from YouTube, one example that I saw was Maven Huffman's YouTube. He was talking to Tony Khan, and Tony Khan started to make reference about Maven's career in WWE. Yeah, this guy has knowledge with wrestling. He has passion about wrestling. He has very, very compassionate about it. Yes, very passionate about it. I'm not saying that WWE doesn't, but to some extent you can see that. So I ramble here, kind of scrambling, but just whatever pops in my head, I'm just trying to give my opinion about it. So anyway, like I said, WWE is not AEW. From WWE, I think even from the past, their idea is storytelling first, then performance later. Just what it is there. So they focus on story. That's why sometimes like the moves, like whatever, but they're very good when it comes to storyline to some extent. I mean, there's some stupid ones, but I don't know. I mean, a lot of people, they say the best storyline ever in WWE ever that happened was the Attitude Era. Whether you like it or not, I'm not a fan of the Attitude Era because I think that's just, like, for me, that's insane, but it is one of the best era. Had the best storytelling. And yes, granted, because the stories are TVMA. And then somewhere down the line, they became public. They became PG TV. And apparently that's a real thing. Even McMahon said it on the Netflix show that it is called the PG era. Because the investor basically said, you gotta tone it down. You gotta aim it for kids. So from the Attitude Era, I know there's the Ruthless Aggression era, which is, I think, was TV-14. And then after that was the PG era. Then everything's really more like everything's safe. No pile drivers. You're not allowed to bleed, and if someone gets hurt, like, cut to commercial or end the match. I mean, that's good. You're taking care of your wrestler. That's cool. AEW, some extent, from the get-go, TV-14. So it's a bit above. That's why you see a lot of swearing to some extent. I mean, they say the S word, the B word, there's always middle finger. Granted, the F word, they shouldn't. They did screw up multiple times. So, but Tony Khan owned up for it. It's like, yeah. I mean, Tony Khan, when it comes to the F word, relax. They do get away with the pay-per-view. I did watch the Worlds, and there were some F-bombs. And I'm like, boy, okay. But it's TV-14. And same rule with PG-13 in the movie. You can say the F word once in the movie, you get away with it. I know it's weird, but it is what it is. So it's probably the same goes with TV-14. I don't know. I am not a rating expert, but it is what it is there. So, again, some people don't like AEW because apparently it hurts WWE, kind of weird. And I've been wondering, like, wow, suddenly, because from what I understand, there are some people who hated it because it's affecting WWE, because you're a WWE loyalist, whatever. But the time that I really, really noticed in social media was the minute they fired CM Punk. And that's when a lot of the loyalists, I guess, WWE, or people just don't like AEW, trying to shed on it, trying to ruin it because, you disrespect CM Punk. In a different video, I'm going to probably give my thoughts about it more. I did talk about it before, but I want to give more in depth because it is sort of interesting with the situation. And I know some people might say, well, I can't believe there's some people really just like shit on AEW for no reason to some extent. I mean, you decide how they didn't do that with TNA. And apparently, that's not the case because I didn't follow TNA's history. I followed AEW history because it was just new. And it was a time finally I was getting to let's see about this wrestling industry in the community. Let's see what the story behind it. Not so much with Total Impact because, I mean, I don't know. I was just WWE focused at the time. And yeah, in the beginning also that people were shedding on TNA. I was surprised. Now, not so much today because especially they're working with WWE, but that'll be a different story. I want to give my thoughts about that partnership because I think it was ass. I mean, not too personal, but WWE and TNA partnership is just not good in my opinion. AEW and TNA makes more sense for me, maybe because again, it's all about more wrestling. In a different video, I want to give my thoughts about that. Wishful thinking, what if that Tony Khan actually bought TNA and part of the AEW brand? I want to give my thoughts about it. It's a what if, but of course, people didn't know that at one point Tony Khan did consider buying TNA. Sometime down the line, they didn't. I don't know. I mean, you heard the history behind it. At one point, Scott D'Amore, who's a TNA legend, tried to buy TNA and Anthem decided to fire him. I mean, that's a dick move, but there's a different story there. But we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen in the future because no offense, the Scarlet Silver guy, I'm not a fan of. I mean, he's a less douchey guy than Nick Khan. And yeah, so just for anyone, my opinion about Nick Khan, he's a douchebag. It is what it is. And I'm gonna stop here. So next time is just more of my thoughts of WWE and AEW existing, competing to some extent to each other, and the beneficial. So stay tuned for that.